Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Dreamweavers podcast, stories of people who are in their dream jobs and how they got to where they are. My name's Harris, and this conversation's with Linda Robertson, professional artist. So that means Linda has found a way to create art full-time for a living. And it wasn't always that way, of course. I mean, who just wakes up and gets paid to create art? So Linda sort of toiled over the years, and her story is fascinating because the whole thing comes full circle. She was an artistic kid, and then she went to art school, and then afterwards she found ways to sort of always work art into her life, but without doing it full time. And you'll discover that Linda is a very practical person. We use that word repeatedly in the beginning of our conversation. And it's interesting because she's, professionally creative. But Linda's story gives reassurance, one, to someone like myself, who's a pretty sort of linear and logical person, and also to others who aren't ready, or just it's not in their sort of constitution to just go and start painting for a living. Linda found a way. She did it the smart way. Not the boring way, not the predictable way, but the smart way. She did it without having to eat beans for a living. And we talk a lot about that. And that's what I think people can gain from it is maybe a little bit of what it looks like to balance both your passions with the world of responsibility. So a little bit about our conversation. We spend maybe the first 20 minutes, 10 of which is like background, warming each other up. Around the 16th minute, or maybe 15th, Linda starts getting a little in-depth about actual art, like the types and concepts and techniques. So if you're not into that, I'd skip ahead. Really, the meat and beans of this is at the 23rd minute. That is where we talk about something that just warmed my heart. The distinction between selling out and doing what you love. And I had a much clearer understanding of that afterwards, after this conversation. So, also, if you make it to the end, which I really hope you do, the 50th minute is when Linda gives sort of the pearl of wisdom here. It's like the cherry on top of everything. Like our whole conversation was leading up to that statement. And I could say it now. I'm not trying to sort of tease you to the end, but it really comes out better when you hear it in our conversation. It comes out organically. So, I hope you enjoy it. Linda, again, she's inspiring because Linda knows who she is, and she's taken that knowledge and she's been able to work her sort of passions into her life. So, enjoy it. Hope you get something out of it, just like I did. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so first off, thank you very much for doing this, for volunteering to be a part of this.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Sounds like it'll be interesting for me, too.
That'd be nice. That'd be really cool.
Well, I'm interested to listen to it when it's done, so that's cool.
I see. It's almost like you say something and then you're like, wow, that was pretty insightful of me afterwards.
Always a good plan.
Yeah. It's like, cool, I sounded good. So tell me your name and what do you do?
I'm Linda Robertson. I'm a professional artist, a painter, art instructor, and an author. Okay. Do you do all those at the same time? I do. Sometimes all at the same time. But yeah, no, I sort of split my week up a little bit by working on a little bit of everything as I go along, but it all has to be able to pivot pretty quickly as I get requests for custom paintings or shows, or as I research the new videographer for my online classes, all sorts of things like that.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes stressful, but mostly very fun.
Yeah. Well, are you the only person who's doing this?
The only person working on these projects?
Yeah. As in, do you have someone who
finds a videographer for you.
That's so funny. No.
The Linda Robertson Corporation.
It absolutely is. Yeah. When I teach my classes, I tell my students that I am their master painter as well as their janitor. So please don't put liquids in the trash can.
Oh, cool.
It's a very humbling profession.
I see. That's cool though, because I mean, you're responsible for everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I also get the chance to do any part of it I want. So, I don't have anybody telling me you have to do this or that today. So I'm happy to be the janitor if I can make those other decisions.
That's pretty nice. So it's like, you know what, I'll make the class. I don't mind cleaning it up either.
Yeah.
So what's the balance like? Because you're doing all these different things.
Yeah, it's up until recently, it's been very much the studio classes have taken more of my time than anything else. And I was starting to feel like I wasn't really a painter anymore. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can kind of lose that. I love teaching. I love it.
Yeah.
But I also love painting. And last year I also put out 2 books.
Cool.
So that took a lot of time, and there were just a lot of ancillary projects going on. So I decided this year, less teaching, more painting.
Okay.
And so that's the plan. I just picked up a bunch of big new panels, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I saw those.
Yeah.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, Linda's artwork is absolutely gorgeous. And it's so much prettier when you see it in person because the colors just really grab you. And yeah, it seems like you're a really colorful person.
I am. Well, I'm from Hawaii originally, and the tropical colors make it into my work.
Yeah.
And what I never noticed until I got my own studio that was large enough to actually put a lot of my work up was that my palette changes through the year. So the brighter it is outside, the more muted my colors are in the paintings. So a painting I do in the middle of summer has a fairly muted palette. It's not overboard.
Yeah.
But in February, sometimes I go a little crazy with the color and I have to pull it back in.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because I would think it's the opposite. I would think like your outside environment flows through you.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I react to the outside environment. Nature is one of my big inspirations in my work.
Yeah.
And so, but I want it to brighten up. So it's like if I can't get those colors from what's happening out my window, I create them in the studio.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like if I can't get it, I'm just going to make it myself.
Damn right.
Wonderful. So how long have you been doing this on your own?
I've been an artist all my life, but professionally, I've been working in encaustic for about 10 years, which is the kind of painting I do.
Yeah.
Which is painting with hot wax.
Okay.
But I've been working as a professional artist full-time probably for about, I'll say, 7 years. And then before that, it was half-time. I sort of stepped down from a full-time job to 2 half-time jobs to 1 half-time job, and then I finally made the leap. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was the full-time job you were doing?
Oh, I've had lots of different jobs in marketing and web development. I've done all sorts of different jobs. I worked at 2 advertising agencies, and but always sort of in the graphic design, very creative realm. And even web development for me was fairly creative. So, yeah. And then when I got to the point where I really wanted to try to do this full time, I'm a little too practical to be the girl that says, that's it, and quits her job and runs off into the sunset with some paintbrushes. So I did basically over 3 years. I cycled down on the full-time and part-time jobs and built up my studio practice so I would have something to actually show by the time I said I was a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds, well, you use the word practical. It sounds really smart and probably saves you a lot of stress to be, I mean, I know a lot of people, and I admire the people who are like, screw this, I'm done, And then they wake up the next day and they're like, what the hell did I just do? How am I going to pay my rent? Like, I don't have anything. Like, just this idea.
Exactly. And sometimes it works out for them, though.
Yeah.
It can work out. It's just that's not how I flow. It's not how it works for me.
Perfect.
So, yeah. I know enough about myself at this point that I know that wasn't how it was going to work for me.
Yeah, that's cool you respect that. When you were working full-time, did you know this was the end goal? Like, you always wanted to be, like, working for yourself as an artist, teacher, writer?
Well, it's kind of funny. I've always been an entrepreneur of one sort or another. I'm always creating little businesses, whether there's something on the side or, I make something and sell it. It never involves making food, only art. I have lots of friends that do, like, little foodie businesses.
Of course.
Not a good cook. But yeah, I sort of, I tried to pretend I wasn't an artist for a long time. I'll say it that way.
Oh, interesting.
Even though I went to art school.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I thought that was going to be great. And I got a minor in museum studies. Okay. So my plan to actually make money was to work in a museum doing installations and that sort of thing for working in a big museum. Okay. And it turns out that is all about who you know, and I did not know the right people. So that didn't work out. Okay. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go do other things that are somewhat creative, but I put the artist idea on the back burner for many years. Okay. And so I ended up doing all these other different jobs, the marketing, web development. I worked for Intel for like 3 different contracts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was good at all these things I did, and some parts of what I did made me happy in most of the jobs, but you can see how that's not an awesome life, right? All those qualifiers equal maybe not as happy as I could be. Yeah. So then I finally realized I just had to be true to who I was and what I wanted to do. So,
wow, you just said almost like this cornucopia of things that I want to talk about because you use some buzzwords that I'm like, that is really interesting. So I guess I'll just start from the beginning, and I hope I don't forget anything that I was thinking of. So you forgot that you wanted to be an artist, or you put that part away. So does that mean, if I understand correctly, that at one point that was what you wanted to do, or that was how you like identified yourself, or that I'm an artist, like I'm really good at this? Yeah,
I knew I was an artist, but I didn't feel like I could make a living at it. And I couldn't figure out how to do that. And
when was this?
Probably all the way from mid-20s to 30s.
Really?
Yeah.
What about when you were a kid? Were you
totally all art all the time.
Yeah?
I drove everybody crazy. I got a Barbie for Christmas, and my mom came in, and I was making a pants hangers for the Barbie out of toothpicks and rubber bands.
Oh.
And they actually worked, but I couldn't even begin to tell you how I did that now. I have no recollection of how I constructed that, but
I'm just imagining a little Barbie closet.
Barbie pants hangers. Like, why don't they have pants hangers for their Barbies?
Yeah, that could have been your first business.
Seriously, I could have made tons of money over the years if I had just gone forward and had any idea how to patent inventions, but probably not, really, now that I think about it. But it's a nice idea. But I was always drawing and coloring and painting, and I had a lot of time by myself as a kid. My mom passed away when I was 12, and so and my sister is 4 years older. So when I was 12, she was 16. So she was all in that, off on your own phase. Okay. My dad was working, so I'd come home from school like 2:30, and I was just kind of by myself for those however many hours. And so, I could sit down and watch TV, and I did fair amount of that, but I also like to just create things. And so that was kind of like my first studio time.
Wow.
I had all this time to do with whatever I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have supplies, or were you just using stuff around the house?
Well, as a kid, you're not too discerning about your art supplies.
I need these pastels. I need these coals.
Exactly. Yeah, although some of my artist friends have trained their kids too well. And when they go to art class, they're like, why don't we have Golden's acrylic,
but
this is a terrible brand.
Doesn't that take the resourcefulness out of it?
I know. But I didn't have that issue. So yeah, I was using whatever was around the house. But if I wanted to get some little supplies, I remember getting a nice set of colored pencils for Christmas, and it wasn't like I had no way to get them. And I saved my money to do stuff too. Like I got my little allowance and I saved it for art supplies.
Oh,
so
cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat though, that so you come home, and this was around 12 was when you really started noticing 12, this habit.
Yeah, well that's when I had the time alone to do it and stuff. Yeah. Lots of kids now everything's scheduled, and it was not that way. I mean, we were the kids on the bikes in a pack, Nobody was looking out for us, really. I mean, of course, it was, we were very safe, but
right.
I hung out with the neighborhood kids a lot.
You didn't have, Latin lessons scheduled at 3, and then
no.
Chinese interpretive
dancing
at 6 o'clock.
No, the most structure I had was I was a competitive gymnast.
Okay.
And so I'd go to the gym after school most days for a while, and then get dropped off at home by whatever carpool was running. So yeah.
Gotcha.
But
and this is in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I grew up in Kailua.
Okay. I'm not too familiar, so because I'm picturing a house on the ocean and
yeah,
it's like a cliff.
Well, not quite. There are many. We did not live on the beach, but it was a house not so different from the neighborhood I live in now.
Yeah.
It's just, more palm trees and better weather, way better weather. Okay. But gorgeous. I mean, I could go hiking whenever I wanted to and get out to the beach. And so there's so much visual inspiration from growing up there. Yeah. And that influences my work now for sure. If people look at my work online, they'll see tropical colors. Yeah. Definitely.
It's very, I went to your show the other night, as you know, and... Yeah, the colors really stand out. It draws you in. And I find it interesting you're also wearing a really colorful shirt right now. It kind of looks like a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the layering of different patterns and colors, and working with the layers of hot wax allows me to do that. So that's part of why I like that work.
Yeah, there is depth. There's actual physical depth in the art. So what why encaustic? Can you explain real quick, besides hot beeswax, what encaustic means?
Sure. Yeah, I tell my students that encaustic is the oldest form of painting that you've never heard of. Oh. I went to art school, and I took classes from a Greek professor, and encaustic is a Greek art, and he never once mentioned it. So shame on you, Dimitri. But it's a mixture of beeswax, pigment, and resin. Okay. You mix them all up in a little pot, and you can make different pots of color. Yeah. And because it's a wax-based paint, it tends to, it gets solid at room temperature. Yeah. And so you have to heat it up on something that looks like a pancake griddle. Okay. And so lots of little pots of paint, and you paint onto your panel. It cools immediately. So you have to fuse every layer together with either a heat gun, or I like to use a propane torch. You'll see lots of torches in my studio. I really enjoy fire.
Wow, fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, actually. When I first moved into this house a few years ago, my garage door to the studio is open all summer, basically, and I work at night a lot, so the neighbors are going by, and they're seeing me with these big torches and thinking, who's moved in now? But it turned out fine.
Yeah. Do you have that big mask on?
No, I don't need a welder's mask. No. No, but I would like to weld sometime. I've never tried that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of fire. My dad used to take me to the hardware store every Sunday. That was our outing. We'd go together to the hardware store, and it was great because as a kid, no one's telling you not to touch stuff.
Huh.
And it was fabulous because I am not afraid of tools at all. So I love going to the hardware store.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you were doing this with your dad, and would you help him with projects?
Oh yeah. He showed me how to rewire lamps, and like he was a relatively handy guy. I think he wished he were more handy than he were. We did some disastrous projects, but mostly it was pretty good.
It's the trying that counts.
Absolutely. And we had a really good time doing it. My dad was an awesome guy, so it was nice to hang out with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had, growing up, doing this art by yourself, having, as you called it, like your own studio, like you saw yourself as an artist.
Yeah.
And then you went to college?
I did.
And were you also, in high school, were you active in art classes or...
Oh, I was, yeah, definitely. I took every art class they'd let me take. But, in high school you don't have so many choices. Yeah. So, but I was also editor of the school newspaper and did a lot of other sorts of creative things. And, but I would go overboard. So, this is going to date me, but when I was editor, we used to do the actual paste-ups. Like, they'd run the newspaper or the type through a printer that would have it printed out on kind of like a plastic, and it had wax on the back of it. Yeah. And then you'd put it on the board and you'd lay it out and stick it to the board wherever you wanted it to do, so it was camera ready.
Cool.
It was.
That sounds more fun than just dragging and dropping.
It was so fun because and I was getting my fingers waxy. I never thought about that before, but that was waxy then, waxy now.
Yeah.
So, but I would, you're supposed to take the big blocks and lay them out. I would cut every line if it wasn't quite right, to just cut them and then space them correctly. And I got reprimanded because apparently that makes it impossible to take a good photograph of. So no one has to worry about that now, but I over-engineer things sometimes.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that was really fun. So, but yeah, I did sort of creative things like that after school as well, and certainly in college it was. I got an associate's degree first to do the basics, and then I went on to University of Hawaii for a while, where I was studying photography, and then I ended up at Humboldt State University in California. Okay, which was really fun.
So. Why photography and not painting? Is that a major? Like, can people? People could pursue painting.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. Well, you get an arts degree, but there's usually a focus. Okay. And so, it's. I didn't say I was a good painter as a kid, so let's put it that way. I was a terrible, terrible painter, but I did a lot of drawing and I did a lot of photography and other things. So I just kind of dabbled in all sorts of things. And then when I got to college, I took a class in alternative process photography, where the theme's coming up. I make my own paint now. In college, I made my own photographic emulsion, where you can mix watercolor and gum bichromate and a couple things together and make your own emulsion, and you paint it onto watercolor paper. Wow. And then put a big negative on top of it, and you expose it in the sun. This all sounds ridiculous now that I'm saying it out loud, but yes, apparently I'm a maker. So anyway, I got really interested in some of these older types of photographic processes. And what most people will know are something called the cyanotype. Have you ever heard of that? No. Oh, it's the same idea, but you can buy kits now. You don't have to make it yourself. You just get your blue emulsion, you paint it out and put it in the sun with some leaves on it or something, and it's really beautiful. There's
still some do-it-yourself, like actual handicraft to it.
Yeah. Back then, of course, in the class, they were teaching us how to do it all from scratch. Yeah. And there may have been kits back then, but we weren't allowed to use them, college stuff. Yeah. We had to learn it, but it was really interesting.
I love people who build things, and especially from scratch. Because it teaches you more than just like what you're building. Like it teaches you how to be resourceful, for example. Yes. And when you have like a box of instructions and specific parts, it's a little different than when you're making Barbie hangers out of toothpicks.
Yes, exactly.
So I hope that that's not lost on kids who are growing up now and schools as well. Because as you can see, it teaches you. I mean, it develops something in you that taught you can make things from scratch. Mm-hmm. You like to use your hands, mm-hmm. and it's just something you're confident in doing now. Absolutely.
But I think even any kids who are presented with a kit, if they're inclined to do this, they're going to use the kit for more than the kit is meant for. You know, like they're just going to find a way to go further.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it could be stifling some of that creativity, but it could also be giving an opportunity to the kids that didn't have enough confidence to try it in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It could go either way.
Yeah, but that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
So, I'm interested in the path of like the thought, like the mindset where I'm an artist and then I'm not an artist. Like when did that happen?
Probably about the time the student loans were due.
I was going to say, it was time to pay the bills or get a job.
Real life. But I never went into it thinking everything was going to be good with money. Like, I always knew that I needed to make that happen. Mm. And I didn't go to school in 4 years. I went to school on the 10-year plan because I kept going a little bit and then stopping and making money and then going some more and then stopping and making money. And
were you paying your own school?
Yeah, mostly. My dad paid it for a little bit, and he was willing to pay the whole thing. I just didn't want him to have to. So I wanted to do it on my own. I'm a little stubborn.
Yeah.
So, and partly I wanted to know that I could do it. Like, it was a bit of a jump to get an arts degree to begin with if you want to be comfortable making a living.
Yeah.
It's not that everybody has to be a starving artist. You just have to figure out how to make it work. I really, this whole starving artist thing makes me kind of frustrated because nobody has to be doing that. You just figure out another way to put your life together that you can make it work in a way you need to.
Yeah. Well, what's keeping starving artists poor?
I think they're not thinking of things in different ways. I mean, not so much anymore in my world because I'm older now, but, when I was in college, they're always like, oh, no, you'd be selling out, you'd be doing this, you'd be doing that. Yeah, and it's what is selling out to you? You make what you want to make, but you can make it in a way so that it's appropriate for people to support you in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like if all I want to do is paint black paintings, then yeah, I might have a little harder time finding a place for those. But there's going to be a place for them. You just have to work harder to figure out where that is.
This just because the word selling out, like
I know.
Well, it's not as frustrating for me because I'm in that I'm 27 and so I got a degree in creative writing and in college I wanted to be a writer and even recently I moved abroad for a little bit, put writing away, and then came back and I'm like, you know what, I want to be a writer. And for a while I was writing things on my own and working in a restaurant, so income is not what I want it to be. It's not really comfortable, and it's like that the idea of getting a full-time job that like a profession is there's still the rebellious naive guy who's like, that's selling out, like you're tossing away your dream. That's not, but there it seems like there's also a level of accepting responsibility as an adult and saying like, you know what, if I want to do this dream, then well, what do I want? I gotta pay the bills, right? If I want to do this, I gotta make some more money, and right now the writing's not making that money, so it looks like I have to make a concession or.
Right. Well, it feels that way for sure, and it did to me too. But what I realized is if you are so stressed out from not being able to pay your bills, you can't write anyway. Right? Like you can't, I couldn't make a decent painting to save my life if I'm so stressed out I think my house is going to go into foreclosure. So if I do a few other things so that I relieve that stress, I'm actually working toward my goal by giving myself the security to be able to do the other parts of my life.
And because I think of the artists, and I hear it in musicians or writers as well, like Edgar Allan Poe burned all of his furniture to like keep warm so he could write stories, and it was like all these depths that he produced his best work. And I'm like, well, good for him. I don't really want to just simply put, I want to burn my furniture.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing. You got to know yourself, right? Yeah. So you got to know yourself, what you need to do, what you need to live. Some people need a lot of money to live, or they need a lot of space, or quiet, or whatever. But if you know what you need and you can get yourself those basics, then you're free to create.
I love free to create. And that's because, someone in a desperate situation might create desperate art. Mm-hmm. Does that?
Sure.
Or it's like, I got to make something that's going to get me money.
Yeah. And then it may be something that they're totally disgusted with later, or it might open a door to something they never would have tried. Or you never know what's going to happen with it. But ideally, I think you don't want to be creating under desperate situations.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Just because other people have it, and they have these really romantic stories of, the death and rebirth, doesn't mean you have to do that as well. You can make your own story.
I love that. You can make your own story.
Yeah. So I forget where you and I were about, because we were talking about selling out. And especially with, again, paying the bills, like how to balance that, like how to balance making a comfortable life for yourself and also pursuing your dreams.
Right. Well, what I did with my jobs was I tried to always have a job that would give me some kind of satisfaction creatively, and a lot of them weren't. You don't know till you get there that particular job is going to be awful.
But that was your intention going into it.
Yeah, of course, as much as I thought about it, sometimes you just need to get a job. So, but I was surprised sometimes at things that I learned. So, I was a temp for a long time.
Doing
anything. Like they'd call you and say, we need a receptionist today.
Gotcha.
And I'd go off and be a receptionist for a day. And, then they needed me to, man a shop or whatever for a day.
This is right after college.
Various times in my life. So
okay.
I've been, whenever I'm in between jobs, previously, now I'm good. I know what I'm doing now. But before, if a job would end and I didn't have a new one lined up, I'd go to the temp agency. And it was kind of interesting because, I went on this just horrible day. They said, we'll tell you up front, no one can do this for more than a day. And I said, why did you call me?
What job is that?
And I said, what is it? And they said, it's a really busy real estate agency. And you're the only receptionist, and there were like 10 lines or something.
Wow.
So you're just pressing buttons and answering and trying to get them to the right person, and people are not happy most of the time. And I lasted 3 days.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. I was pretty impressed with myself. But it was like, in the meantime, while I was at this really stressful job, I was finding out that my brain worked in a certain way. I could, manage large projects. I could do this without losing my mind. I was keeping people happy while they were on the phone, and other people while they were at the desk. And, it was a terrible job. And of course it wasn't anything I had to spend a lot of time on. But I feel like even something like that, you can figure out a little something about your own personality.
Yeah.
And I never would have taken that as a regular job. So, 3-day experiment.
And also, a deeper knowledge that you did a job for 3 days that these people warned you about, or like, you're lucky if you last one.
Well, actually, they gave me some pretty sweet, easy jobs after that because they were really thankful. And I think I wrote it out. I think it was only a 3-day job, like someone was sick or something.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, they gave me some really easy jobs after Yeah, so
cool.
That was nice.
So and there was a friend of mine gave me like a really good line that jobs, right? Like what you were doing and some of the things that I've done as well. Things that aren't really like, pulling your heart are good ways to acquire tools.
Absolutely.
Like as you said, I learned how to manage a project. I learned how to keep people happy. I think it's really valuable to be able to see that then you're getting something from it, and it's not like, I gotta make $40 today, or something like that. So how long were you doing those temporary jobs for?
Well, like I said, they were sort of sprinkled in and around my other ones. Yeah. But funny enough, I after doing some temp jobs, I ended up working for a temp agency because I had seen how they were working, and I thought, well, I can do that. Yeah. That's easier than this. So I got a job at a temp agency in San Francisco, and I was managing all of the temporary workers at the San Francisco Convention Center.
Wow.
For a couple of years.
Okay.
And that really taught me how to work large projects. I mean, I was placing like 100 people a day, and that was super MacGyver kind of work because some of them were just like me. They just needed an extra, work for the day or for the month or whatever while they were in between things. But some of them were homeless, and they just needed work. Yeah. And so, like I'd get them in there and we'd get them some clothes and they'd go work for the day, and I'd made sure they get paid that day so they had something to live on. And so it was a big expansion of anything I ever thought temp agencies did.
Yeah.
But it led to me getting a job as a project manager, which I also found I'm very good at. And if you want to be an artist and do all these different bits of things, you better be a good project manager.
Wow.
So that was a big leap for me. You'd think that, dumb little receptionist job was a throwaway. But that and the other jobs that came with them led me to one that led me to another and into other jobs.
The word throwaway also makes me buzz a little bit. Because it sounds like you've learned there are no throwaways.
Yeah, I don't think, well, yeah. There's got to be some. Like, there's some jobs I got nothing out of. Come on, tell me you haven't had a job that you thought, come on.
Yeah. Well, there's,
I was a bartender for 5 minutes. That was a bad idea.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's fair.
No, actually, a real bartender would be great. I was serving beer at a pizza joint or something. Okay. It was just, that was a throwaway.
Gotcha.
But I see your point. Yeah, mostly you can find something in most jobs.
Yeah, well, I think at the bare minimum, I know I don't like to pour beers.
Yeah. Actually,
I don't like a pizza place.
A really good point, because finding out what you don't want to do or what you're not good at is sometimes as valuable as the other side.
Yeah, definitely. So, project managing, was this for a big company?
Well, that was for the
I'm waiting
temp
until
agency.
Intel. I'm waiting until Intel comes
into
the story.
That's graphic design and web development I did for Intel.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we'll have to go back a little. So up to project management and all those sorts of things, and then I discovered web development way back when there were blink tags and a book with a wizard on it. Long time ago. You have a blank look on your face.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, good. You missed that part. Good for you. So there wasn't a lot of information when we all started developing for the internet. So that was an easy way to get in because there wasn't that much to know. So you could get in with a book and playing around. And so I started working in web development. And this leads us to the travels in Italy and Greece. Okay. So I was doing all of these jobs after college and just trying to figure out what I was going to do instead of being an artist so I could make money. And my father passed away. How
old were you?
I was, I'm going to have to do math. 29, maybe?
Okay.
And so that was a big blow, and but also a big kind of a wake-up call, like, what the hell am I doing? What is all this? None of this is important to me. So I took a few months off. I had a little bit of money, and I took a few months off, and I went traveling in Greece and Italy. And I don't seem to be able to just do things for fun. So I decided I was going to do this was kind of before the internet, so it was more CDs. I was going to make a CD about travel in Italy and Greece. And
like
it
travel
was going to
tips?
be, and it was going to be an interactive CD. So it was like I was taking pictures of signs in Italian, and then you could click a button and they would turn into the sign in English, and would teach you how to use the bus system and
fun.
practical.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool actually.
Yeah.
So I traveled all around, and it was called Wandering Italy, and I was writing stories about travels in these different towns, taking photographs of them, and so it would be kind of like a virtual tour before you go.
Gotcha.
Because you couldn't just pop up the internet and do your research back then. So
with the phone, it's so easy now.
God, I know. Well, actually, the internet killed the CD. So before the CD got together, things really started hopping on the internet, and it was clear that I just missed the window. It should have been a website, which then nobody pays for.
Gotcha.
So that it was a fun project, but it didn't end up doing anything. It didn't end up really going anywhere. But I did end up starting a business doing web development, and so one of those little videos from Italy did make it online on Netscape's website, which is really funny. So they were one of my first big clients, and it was when there was no video on the web at all. And I know I'm boggling your mind, but so
what was there?
When Netscape, lots of blink tags. So when Netscape finally came out with their browser that handled video, they were putting these tiny, it was an inch big video, and to have anything moving on screen was this huge deal, and they used my video from Italy as the first video that went online of these birds flying away, because it could also only be 7 seconds long, because nothing could handle it. Too. Yeah. And it was taking up all the computer capacity at that point. So
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So I got in early on a lot of the web development sorts of things online.
Yeah.
And had a lot of websites and books, and worked for Netscape and Oracle and some other big companies.
So you said this was your web development company? And this is what you started when you got back from Italy?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long was Italy and Greece?
Just 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And then some recoup and development time as I was trying to make the CD, and then that didn't work out. So maybe a year later. You
said, I know enough about this, I'm going to start my own company.
Well, basically everybody who had a book had as much knowledge as everybody else.
Wow.
So we all just showed up and started doing stuff. And I did get very lucky. The only way I got into working with Netscape is because I started a little company, and we were doing little websites. As you would imagine, you don't start out working for Netscape. Yeah. Well, I was part of a networking group, and I met this woman who also was doing some websites, and I called her one day and said, "Hey, I do not know how to make this kind of file. Do you know how to do it? Can I hire you to do that for me?" And she said, "Sure, but I have this job interview, and if it pans out, I might not be able to help you." Fine, no problem. She got a job at Netscape. She turned around and hired my company to work on the new browser. So, I was gonna hire her for $100 to do some JavaScript, and all of a sudden I have an interview with someone major at Netscape.
Wow.
But there were so many little businesses then that you could do that. You can't really do that now.
Okay.
I was finally in the right place at the right time, so that was cool. And that was in San Mateo in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I understood correctly, so you have a company, and Netscape is a client of yours. Yeah. So you were doing a project and kind of contracted work.
Freelance.
And were you doing art on the side?
At that point, no. I was doing graphic design was my art, basically. What was feeding my creativity.
I was going to say, did that... so this was a skill set that you picked up.
Yeah.
And did it give you something?
Totally. It was so exciting.
Cool.
I loved it. I totally loved it. Oh. I was not making things with my hands, but I was so excited to be making things with my mind. Okay. And still lots of creativity, lots of the graphic design. And for me, it's going to sound kind of nerdy, but project management is pretty creative for me. Like, I love being able to figure out what needs to happen when and pluck this part and put it in there and then find the right person that needs to work on this part of the project. Mm-hmm. There's something very satisfying to me about that.
It sounds like putting together a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what interested me about the web development. Is I was coding HTML by hand, and that's pretty easy. That's no problem for me. But then when I got into some of the stronger code, back-end code, I had a really hard time. Like, my brain doesn't do that. So I had a partner that was doing that part. But what I found out was that I can read that code. I know what it's doing because of the patterns in the code. So I know that this snippet of code does that. I can read enough of it to know that it does it. So it was like being able to read a language but not being able to speak it.
Wow.
So it was fascinating because...
that's really cool. It's a computer language, too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I could look over other people's work and have an idea of what it was doing as opposed to just hoping for the best. So...
The project manager who knows nothing about code.
No, you don't want that.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Yeah, and later in life I actually had at one of the advertising agencies, they interviewed me for a job as a graphic designer, and they said, I'm sorry you didn't get the job, but we'd like to make a different job for you.
Oh, great.
Because you can actually talk to the engineers and the graphic designers, and we need you to be the interpreter.
Wow.
Because
how wonderful is that?
To each other.
So this, I mean, something I picked up from talking to you is something you have a logical mind.
Definitely.
And it's, I mean, I picked that up when you told me, like, before I'm an artist, I need to get this, and this in place first.
Yeah.
And art is also like a creative, or it's like associated with right brain thinking. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to hear a logical person in a creative field. And it sounds like you found a job that incorporated both. Mm-hmm. So was my first question, is graphic design, was that your first job that really like excited you?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, when I was in college, there weren't really computers for us. I mean, somebody showed me Photoshop and I laughed at him. And I said, that's so lame. Why would anyone ever make art on the computer? These words came out of my mouth. Yes, they did.
You said in high school?
At college.
College. That's something I would have said in college.
Yeah, okay.
It's not pure, so...
No, exactly. Well, I mean, we were off pounding things and, doing life drawing and real art.
Yeah.
God, you're so abrasive in college. Not you, but me. But anyway.
What do you mean abrasive?
Oh, just, like, I don't know. In college, I felt kind of like a lot of my friends and we all thought we knew everything that was going on in the world, right?
I did.
Surprise! So. There's a whole lot more going on out there.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's easy to say, oh, you're selling out. Like, that's just a conversation stopper. Like, why don't you find out how they're actually making their way in the world creatively? There's so many different ways to do that.
Yeah.
So I think when somebody labels something selling out, it's just like they don't really want to hear what you have to say.
And I wonder, it's interesting who's accusing someone of selling out. Because it's not like, I don't imagine a really successful artist, who like, let's drop a name of someone who's just become really popular, them saying, oh, you sold out by getting that job at by doing graphic design, they're probably like, if you're creating, if you're doing a good, whatever, if you're happy,
do it.
What I'm saying is, like someone who is successful who has found fulfillment in their work coming from that point would probably say, whatever you're doing that makes you happy, go for it. And the college kid's like, sell out.
Yep, totally. Totally.
The one who without much experience.
Exactly.
And that is a really I'm gonna get something from that. That's an interesting distinction.
Yeah. Well, everyone approaches their creative life in different ways. So, and for a while, graphic design was great. I really enjoyed it. I had a wonderful time with it. I loved writing HTML. I was the queen of tables. You don't even know what that is, but It was awesome, and it was really hard.
This is a whole part of your life that sounds really nice.
Oh, they don't even use them anymore. So it's like, I couldn't keep up with the technological side of it. It was exhausting because it was constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I finally just burned out on being on the computer that much, and I needed to do something tactile. And that's what got me back to making and creating and starting to paint. So
okay.
I was just like, okay, enough with the screens already. I'm done. I need to get messy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. When was this? Were you still working?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had the web development company, and I think it was, I had the web development company in California. Then I moved to Oregon about 17 years ago, and worked for a couple advertising agencies here, and that was more marketing and project management and things like that. I was kind of getting away from the coding stuff. And then I guess it would have been 10 years ago or so that I kind of started that slow changeover, where I knew I really wanted to make art full-time, and started going from full-time to part-time to double-time. It turns out, as I work for myself, seems like it's double-time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I understand when you said, I'm an artist, and then I put it away, and then I got it back. It warms me that you got it back.
Well, and it never really went away. It just went away from the maker side. It went onto the computer. So I was still creative then, and I really loved making websites, and I was good at it.
Yeah.
And I still do my own website as well, but I don't do other people's anymore. I mean, I help the random crying friend.
Yeah. But That sounds like you have enough to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yourself.
But and I still enjoy it, and I like being able to do mine myself, so I don't have to call somebody and wait a week for them to do it. That would make me crazy.
Yeah, that too.
But all of these jobs that I had have given me the skills that I need to use to run my art business. And if I weren't good at marketing and project management, web development, graphic design, photography, imagine if I had to hire people to do all those things. I'd have to give it up again and go get a job at that crazy, travel agency or wherever to be the receptionist who cries at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for me.
Like, I'm just picturing the big mosaic came together. Right? You're naming all these things you picked up over the years.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that your path was just accruing these things. Like, now you're getting this skill. And now you're getting this skill. And so on.
And I'm so lucky, too, because if I looked back from where I am now and tried to choose jobs that would help me get what I needed, I couldn't have done a better job.
So it was, can you tell me, like, kind of explain that a little bit?
So, like I mentioned, all those things that I need to be able to do to run my art business. If I said, okay, so I need to have one marketing job, one web development job, one, I need all these skills, let's get a job in each one.
Oh.
I just lucked out, or there's a grander scheme that I don't know about still, which is fine too. I'm good for that. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm not done yet.
Right. Right.
What else is coming?
Then I learned how to be an artist entrepreneur. And
that led me to...
Woo, that's fun.
Who knows what?
That's fun.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is he...
yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Come here, sweetheart. I'm going to take his collar off.
Okay.
I should have done that. I know, buddy. You got stuck, huh? Did you get stuck back there? I know. He's used to more attention.
Oh, yeah, you can give him some attention.
You're being very good, sweetheart. Thank you.
Yeah, he is. So, I'm curious about life right now. So, I mean, I'm in your house. It's a really warm place. As soon as I walked in, something about the lighting, the colors in here, it's really nice. And then I walk a few feet back and it's your studio, and you've got your paintings hung up, and there's space for your students, and it sounds like you got it going on.
I do. I do got it going on. Yeah, I'm very happy right now. I had a big change a few years ago and needed to sort of reinvent my process of how things work. I had a studio outside of the house. It turns out that doesn't work for me at all. I need a space in the house where I can go work whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And I've got a great house that has room for just enough students. I've taught lots of students at a time, but I like to keep it really small. So I only teach 6 students at a time. It's very intimate. I tell them to treat my house like it's their own kitchen, just open drawers and do things. And yeah, it's really fun. I have a 5-day class once, a few times a year. Yeah. And it's like we're roommates for a week. It's really fun. We go out to dinner. We do all sorts of things.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, and then I have a friend who lives down the street who also works in Encaustic. He's one of my former students, and we go on a tour of his studio. And
yeah.
So, but it's fun. It's like a little community. So, and there's a great art community in Portland. So, it's pretty exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a creative vibe to the city. It's very much like a city of making, and
it is,
or big ideas at least.
Absolutely.
So, do you I mean, your studio is attached to your house now, so you don't have to drive or anything. When do you do art? Do you have like a set schedule, or do you just wake up at 4 a.m. and you're like, I gotta paint this?
I never wake up at 4 a.m. I might go to bed at 4 a.m.
Okay.
Not a morning person, but I do work into the night quite often, and often when I'm painting, I just lose track of time. So, but my schedule is, we're gonna stop for a second because he's gonna lose it here.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Give me just a second.
I can pause this.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about schedule.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, buddy, what's the problem?
So I decided to end the interview at that point, or at least the portion I'm releasing. Linda and I continued talking for about 30 more minutes, really about her day-to-day life and what that looks like. And in the end, I wanted this to be under an hour, and I felt like the first part of the conversation, the part that focused on her story, was really what I wanted people to hear. And the day-to-day life is important as well, especially if you're curious or if you want to be a professional artist one day, because there's a lot that goes into it besides just waking up with a paintbrush. So that might one day be put out as like supplementary material, but for now, like I said, I ended it there. I hope it's not too abrupt of a finish, but that's where I felt like one conversation ended and the other began. So you're at the end. I appreciate that. Many, many thanks, and I hope you continue listening. Thank you.